Shortly after the Civil War and up until about the turn of the century, these mountains along the West Virginia-Kentucky border were home to the most famous feuding family of all times, the Hatfields and McCoys. The leader of the Hatfield clan, Devil Anse, is my great-great-great-uncle. And this is where our story begins.
They were men who matched the mountains. They were Hatfields and McCoys. They were men who matched the mountains. They were men when they were boys.
I recently met with singer-songwriter Jimmy Wolford at his home in Kentucky. Although many books have been written on the feud, Wolford, a local legend and great-nephew to Randolph McCoy, the patriarch of the McCoy clan, was the first to write an entire album of songs on the feud. I asked him how my uncle, William Anderson Hatfield, got his nickname, Devil Anse.
One, they said when he was a kid, he was devilish. You know, liked to carry on and play pretty rough at times. Then others say that during the Civil War, he had a nickname they nicknamed him Devil Anse because he was a pretty tough character.
Devil Anse Hatfield was born in a log cabin in 1839, one of 11 children. His playground, the rugged Appalachian Mountains of southern West Virginia. He loved to hunt and was known as one of the best horsemen and marksmen in the valley. Although he often hunted black bear, this photo shows in later years he also kept some as pets. He was illiterate, but Devil Anse owned considerable land and ran a successful timber business. He and his wife Levice were busy raising 13 children. Life was good. Until one day in the fall of 1878, Randolph McCoy, who lived on the Kentucky side of the Tug Fork River, accused Floyd Hatfield, Devil Anse's cousin, of stealing some of his hogs. The case went to trial, and a jury of 6 Hatfields and 6 McCoys found Floyd Hatfield innocent.
They gave the hog back to the Hatfields. All hell broke loose.
Not long after the pig trial, a McCoy shot to death the juror who had sided with the Hatfields. After that, tensions remained high among the two families. But not for Anse Hatfield and Roseanne McCoy. Despite their family's feud, the oldest son of Devil Anse and the daughter of Randolph McCoy fell in love. Roseanne, too afraid to go home, moved in with Anse's family and became pregnant. But their fathers would not let the young couple marry. So Roseanne moved in with her aunt and gave birth to a baby girl who later died of measles. To make matters worse, Anse soon married Roseanne's 16-year-old cousin, and although it wasn't a bullet that killed her, Roseanne died of a broken heart just the same, while still in her 20s. Then, 2 years later, the fighting escalated into one of the bloodiest battles of the feud.
It was a hot summer day back in August 1882, and it was election day here on Blackberry Creek. Unfortunately, the festivities turned tragic when my great-great-grandfather, Ellison Hatfield, and 3 McCoy brothers got into a heated argument. The McCoy brothers, armed with knives, stabbed Ellison more than 20 times and shot him. Bleeding profusely but still alive, they brought Ellison back here to this log cabin.
Sarah McCoy pleaded with the Hatfields to spare her 3 sons. But Devil Anse had already made a promise.
If Ellison dies, I'm going to kill the McCoy boys.
2 days later, Ellison Hatfield died. That's when Devil Anse and his posse found the 3 McCoy brothers and brought them here, tied them to some bushes, blindfolded them, asked them if they had any final words, and then shot them in retaliation for his brother's death. It was an eye for an eye back then, wasn't it?
It was Bible. An eye for an eye.
The Hatfields were wanted men and had to travel in well-armed posses. Bounty hunters were always on their trail. It's well known that Devil Anse hid out on the 2nd floor of this old building here on Mate Creek many nights to avoid capture. My late grandfather, Tom Chafin, and the nephew of Devil Anse recalled a visit to Devil Anse's home when he was just a boy. He remembered how Uncle Anse wouldn't even take a nap without assigning some of his sons to keep watch.
He would give them a rifle, and they'd hold this rifle on their lap and would look out that window, and he would tell them, Now, don't take your eye off from that window. You look out that window and watch, because your dad's going to take a nap, and I don't want to take a chance. And Aunt Vicey would get mad, and she would bawl him out and say, Anderson, she called him Anderson. Anderson, why don't you go on in there and go to bed and sleep? Those McCoys are not coming all the way over here in Logan County to Island Creek.
There were several more battles, and as many as 15 lives lost in the feud, including 5 McCoy children. Some say Randolph McCoy, who spent his later years as a ferryboat captain, never quite recovered from the loss of so many children and died in 1914 at the age of 88, a bitter man. But for Devil Anse, something dramatic happened that changed his life and perhaps the lives of many generations to come. At the urging of his friend, preacher Dyke Garrett, Devil Anse, at the age of 72, went forward at a revival meeting and became a Christian. Soon afterwards, he was baptized in the waters of Island Creek near his home in Logan. Jimmy Wolford recounts the day in song.
Island Creek was cold when Devil Anse went under, but when that bearded man came to the top, there was shouting and singing, the rifle fire stopped ringing, and the water in Island Creek turned boiling hot.
This photo from September 23, 1911, shows Devil Anse on the banks of the river that day, surrounded by quite a few witnesses. And for preacher Dyke Garrett, it was a baptism he'd been waiting his whole life to perform.
He had a little bit of bragging rights, and he would tell people that he was the man that baptized the devil.
I spoke with author and feud expert Keith Davis at the Hatfields Cemetery in Logan County, West Virginia, home to a life-size marble statue of the feud leader. He believes the baptism of Devil Anse not only helped officially end the feud, but had an impact on generations of Hatfields and other families throughout the region.
I know many Hatfields that are in church, that are committed to Christ, and I think that something happened in 1910, 1911 that is still going on today.
According to friends and neighbors, Devil Anse spent the last 10 years of his life in peace, knowing that he was forgiven, his sins washed away in the cool mountain stream. His death from pneumonia in January 1921 at the age of 81 received much media attention, including an article in the New York Times. And his funeral was the largest ever held in Logan County, drawing several thousand people. They say some of the mourners even had the name McCoy.